What's going on, guys? So today I'm going to show you how to make a router plane jig out of some random parts I picked up at Home Depot and a $5 cutting board. Yeah, a $5 plastic cutting board that you can pick up at any local bargain shop or thrift store, and we're going to make a router plane jig with it. So let's get at it. So the things I grabbed from Home Depot were these angle iron pieces with flat stock steel, and those are going to be my sliders, and also some little L brackets that were over in the hardware section. Now the first thing I did is use the 24 inch by 24 inch pre-cut piece of plywood and screwed the L brackets to the plywood on the side. Now I actually lined up the bottom of the L brackets with the bottom of the plywood, and then also lined up the outer edge of the brackets with the outside of the plywood sheet. This would give me a 24-inch span across the entire board. I just used wood screws with a tapered head to fasten the brackets to the side of the plywood. These worked really well, and also the brackets that I grabbed already had pre-drilled holes in them, which made fastening them to the plywood base super easy and fast. Now all I had to do was confirm my measurements so that I could cut the flat stock pieces that were going to be the side slide rails on each side of the base. Now, like I said, I put the edges of my brackets on the ends of this 2x2 piece of plywood, so it was pretty much exactly 24 inches. After that, it was as simple as marking it out and then cutting it with an angle grinder. Now, I don't get to do a lot of metal work. I absolutely love doing metal work, actually. So this was a lot of fun. It was nice to kind of mix things up a little bit. I decided to get a measurement for the center of this larger hole on the side of the L brackets for actually mounting the slider pieces. Now, when I decided to do this, it was just for convenience, honestly, because the hole was already in there. But I am going to go back and do pre-measured holes all the way down the L brackets so that the sliders are adjustable in height.
My fingers! They don't work! Wrong direction!
Once I finally got my fingers to work, I just bolted on the slider rails using a Phillips head machine screw and a couple of washers. This worked really well. It secured it really strong, and also it gives a nice physical stop to the end of the rail, so you don't have to worry about your top slider actually sliding off the end, even if it was able to. Now, when you're using the top slider, it does hit the brackets, but that's okay. It's designed to have a stop in it so you don't accidentally slide it off the end of the rail.
They don't freaking work!
The next step is to start cutting down the cutting board. Now, I know that's kind of a funny phrase, but that's how this works. So I pretty much just figured out a good size for what I thought was going to work and hit the table saw. Now, this stuff cuts like butter. It's just a plastic cutting board, so it was very simple. And then I also cut a groove in it, going back to check and make sure that it would fit over the slider rail so that it would smoothly slide back and forth. I also went ahead and cut a 6-inch by 6-inch square out of the cutting board. This is what the router base to slide on the rails was going to be made out of. Taking the 6" by 6" piece for the router base, I marked out all the holes and had already drilled 3 of the mounting holes to mount it to the bottom of the router, and also countersunk the other side so that the screws would fit tightly inside and not cause any problems. After that, it was a matter of cutting the slider rails on the side down to the length I needed. So I made a mistake. These are way too short. So the problem is that the width of my router base plate that I had to make to fit in between the rails to slide is about 2 inches longer than these. That is just a oversight on my part. So I have to remake the lower sliders. So let's try this again. This time, instead of using the table saw to cut down the piece, I just cut it to width on the bandsaw, and then used the table saw to dado out the slot again that would ride on the upper rails. Next, as it decided to start raining on me outside, I had to mark out the spots that I was actually going to use to bolt the upper slide rails to the bases that I made to slide on the crossbar. For these, I pretty much used the exact same mounting hardware as with the side rails, as that was the ones I had on hand. And also, I wanted these sticking up out of the top, again, for the idea that if I am using the router and not paying attention, that these will stop it from sliding off the end of the rails, no matter what happens. So to me, that was just an extra safety measure. After getting the first side bolted down, I actually mounted the rails on the crossbars so I could get the correct width, and then just added the screws on the other side and tightened them down so that everything was good and tight and would not move around on me. With the router jig finally finished, tightened up, and ready to use, I could not wait to get to using it on this monster of a cutting board. This is one of the main reasons I actually made this jig, was as I don't have a planer, I needed a way to flatten out this huge cutting board I am making, along with others that will come in the future. And I love the way this thing works. It is a little different than most, as it's not near as big, but it works great, and it got a really nice flat surface on this cutting board. So I'm really excited with how it come out and how well it works. So there it is, guys. The router plane jig from just random parts I picked up at Home Depot, and a $5 plastic cutting board. Now, this was not a planned build. I needed to build one, and honestly, I just kind of happened across most of the parts I needed one day when I was grabbing some other stuff for a different project. And that being said, it works great. You can scale this thing up. You can do however large you want. You just have to buy longer rails. I will say, make sure that your side rails are nice, thick steel. Don't use aluminum bars or anything, just because they flex. And you don't necessarily want too much movement that way. But it is completely scalable, and there's ways to modify it to where you can fit wider projects. I'm actually probably going to split my base right down the middle so it actually opens up, and then you can adjust the rails and the sliders on the top as needed for your width. But as it sits, it works great. I planed down this cutting board, and it works fantastic. So I really hope you guys got something from it and enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to go follow me on Instagram, and then also subscribe here on YouTube. And I've got a website in the works, guys. It's just taking time. It's hard to get everything done between projects, customer orders, and video editing and everything. So we'll get there. But I really appreciate it, guys, and I hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you guys later.